How's it going, everyone? Marriland here, and that's right, I'm back with the second half of the theme deck opening videos. So these are theme decks from X and Y Furious Fists. If you haven't seen the one that I just did rather recently on Enchanted Echo, I recommend checking that out. It's a little bit lengthy, but I do go over so many of the basics of the trading card game. Additionally, if you are more of an advanced player of the trading card game or have any sort of level of competitive decks, this probably isn't the video for you because I'm really going over very basic introductory level tactics and techniques for the trading card game. However, I am holding a giveaway over on Marriland.com for a set of these theme decks as well as a whole booster box worth of Furious Fists. Oh yeah, it's definitely really cool. It runs from, from right now actually, until October 6, 2014. So, head on over there, links in the description, and, that's something even competitive players will want. But definitely newer players as well, because that's a great way to get started, because it gives you some theme decks to kind of, get you introduced to the game, and then also gives you a whole bunch of other cards to really tweak your deck. So that's awesome. Now, as I said, last time I covered the Enchanted Echo deck, so I'm not going to go over that again. And I'll probably be a little less descriptory as far as, what stuff does, the basic, well actually I'll tell you everything that is in here, but I won't go over a lot of the basic rules like I did in the Enchanted Echo deck. So that being said, here's a look at what you get inside of the Dark Hammer theme deck. It clearly features Pangoro here, and it has quite a variety of other things as well. So that's kind of handy. You bring the hammer down with the Dark Hammer theme deck. Okay, so you want to get your hardest hitters into battle-ready mode quickly with handy trainer cards like Evo, Soda, and Karina. Yeah, that's kind of nifty. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this and see kind of what you would get if you open one of these. So again, theme decks, they are not the best deck in the world by any means. They are just sort of starter decks to get you introduced to the trading card game. You can find the rules in full detail online on Pokemon.com, but there's also a nice little playmat that you get in here. So, let's take a look. You'll get everything in this nice little package here, including a special foil pattern for the Pangoro, which is really cool. It's going to take me a while to get used to saying Pangoro. I heard it on the anime. It's like, it's really pronounced that way? Wow, go figure. I always called it Pangoro. But, oh well. You get this nice little playmat here, which, you can kind of use to give you an idea of what's up. I think it's a two-player playmat as well. It's rather large, so I don't feel like opening it up fully, but I'll at least kind of give you a brief little glimpse inside, just so you can kind of see what's going on here. Again, it shows some of the basic rules. You can use this as a reference guide for things. And I think it also shows some of the stuff on the side of the playmat too, like what you can do during your turn. I just don't feel like opening it up. We're just gonna put this off to the side somewhere. Okay, so you get that. In addition to that, you get some damage counters. Wow, this one has 2. Did the other one have 2 and I just didn't realize it? I think it only had 1. Did I get a bonus one? Oh well, I guess it's just because this one does a lot of damage, am I right? Yeah, so again, if you're not familiar with the Pokemon trading card game, you use these little damage markers to indicate how much damage you have done to your opponent. Each Pokemon has a hit point number that's printed on the card, and that's how much damage it can receive. This is always in an increment of 10, so that's kind of handy. And whoops, we got the code in here. Oh yeah, we got that. We got this little checklist thing. Oops, put this off to the side for a moment. Alright, so this is cool. This is a nice little checklist for the Furious Fists expansion. And it tells you a little bit about Mega Evolution Pokemon, Pokémon-EX, and stuff like that. And it also has a nice little checklist of everything that's in the set. You may notice that there's 2 boxes. That's because pretty much all the cards come in a special like a reverse foil kind of pattern, which is cool. You'll also notice some are red on the left side here. Well, that just indicates that it's a normal foil, holofoil thingy, whatever you want to call it. And then the blue checkbox over here is for the reverse foils. So that's handy. Yeah, so in addition to that handy little thing, you get the star of the show here, the Pangoro. Look at this thing, it looks mean. It's gonna clobber someone. And it also has hammer arms. So yeah, this really is the dark hammer, I tell you. Yeah, so this does go into your deck. It's kind of handy. And look, you even get a coin. Cool blue Lucario coin, I like it. Very nifty. Well, let's see, do we get heads or tails with it? Oh, this one's tails. Oh, well, that's fine. Okay, so let's see what is inside of this dark hammer theme deck. First of all, you do get a really cool, I don't know how many times I said first of all. In fact, actually, before I do that, let me show you this. This is one of those code card things. You get it in here. I'm not going to show the code card, I do apologize, but you can unlock this theme deck on the Pokemon Trading Card Game online. So that's really handy. You can actually just use the deck you just bought online as well as in person, which is kind of nice, actually. Okay, so that being said, let's take a look at the Dark Hammer theme deck. So this uses Dark and Fighting type Pokemon, which is rather handy. So let's see what we got in here. I'm going to put that off to the side. So as with the previous one, you have various different evolution lines and stuff in here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of set some of these aside, and I'll go over each and every evolution line just to kind of give you an idea of, all right, what is this? What is it doing in this deck? How does this help me as a player? Because ultimately that's what theme decks are about. You want to find cards that have good uses, and yeah, that's definitely a very important thing. So I'm here to kind of tell you what's up with all that. In fact, are there... Oh, that's Meanfu. Let's just set that Scrafty there. Choke. I love that Machoke art. It looks so funny. Don't need another Licky Licky. I'll just set aside one of each. So I guess I have these two. I'll just put them away. Chop. Do I have that yet? Yeah. Scrafty. Pancham. Makuhita. Yes, I got that. Lickitung. Let's set that down. Hariyama. Pretty cool. Hitmonlee. Oh, there's the Mean Shao. And there's Landorus. There's a nice card. Okay, so I think that is it for unique cards in here. So let's just go over each one of these evolution lines. Let's start with Pancham here and Pangoro. So there are 4 Pancham in this deck. That's kind of handy. On top of that, there's 2 Pangoro here. So let's take a look at the Pancham. Now, there's actually 2 different types of Pancham in Furious Fists, but this is the one that's in the deck. So it has 60 hit points, not too shabby, fighting type. And then for 1 colorless energy, Bad Influence Evolution. Whoa! If you have any dark Pokemon on your bench, search your deck for a card that evolves from this Pokemon and put it onto this Pokemon. This counts as evolving this Pokemon. Shuffle your deck afterwards. So with that attack, as long as you have a dark type on your bench, which I guess really just means Scraggy at this point. That's the only dark type in this deck other than Pangoro here, Scraggy and Scrafty. But still, if you have that in play, you can go ahead and get yourself Pangoro right away. So with evolution, if you're not familiar with how this works, again, I explain this in greater detail in the Enchanted Echo theme deck video. But in a nutshell, you have to have the card in your hand, and then you have to wait a turn when this is active, or when it's anywhere in play. Like once you play it, you can't evolve it right away. You have to wait a turn and then play it onto it to evolve it. However, some effects let you get around that wait a turn restriction, and this Bad Influence Evolution is one of them. However, it'll use up your turn though, because using an attack ends your turn. So it doesn't really matter. And again, if you're not familiar with the symbols here, you need to have those energies on your Pokemon in order to use those attacks. However, the ones that are kind of white and have a star on them, those are colorless energy. And as long as it's on the card, that can be supplied by anything. You can't attach a colorless energy thing, like a double colorless energy, let's just say, to provide fighting, but if you're trying to pay for an attack's energy cost, anything will work there. So, hopefully that made sense. Again, I do explain this in greater detail in the other video. So that's its first move. Its second move, it takes a little bit to use, that's the problem. So for a fighting energy and then 2 of anything, you do Confront, which does 30 damage. Nothing too fancy there, but you know, it's pretty basic. Pretty basic. You definitely want to get this thing evolved right away, because once it's evolved, it's pretty darn strong. It turns into a dark type, which is interesting. Has 120 hit points, nice. And then it has 2 moves that are rather interesting. They need dark energy. So you better be playing both types of energy. It has Clobber for 30 damage, takes 1 dark, 1 colorless, and you may discard an item card from your hand. If you do, this attack does 40 more damage. So any of your item cards, which I will show you in a moment, if you discard one, it'll do 70 for 2. Not too bad. On top of that, it has Hammer Arm. 1 dark, 2 colorless, or 2 of anything, and it does 80 damage. Woo, nice. You discard the top card of your opponent's deck as well, so you might wind up discarding one of the best cards in their deck. You never know, and that's handy. And it hits really hard. So the problem is it does have 3 retreat, so you have to have 3 energy on it if you want to send this from your active to your bench to retreat. Again, I do talk about that more in the previous video, but 3 is kind of pricey. Weakness to fighting, so fighting type attacks will do twice as much to it. Resistance to psychic, so psychic type moves will do 20 damage less to it. And it's a stage 1, so yeah. That's Pangoro for you. Not too shabby. Now there are 4 Panjam and 2 Pangoro in here, so that's kind of handy. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to the other dark type line. And that would be Scraggy and Scrafty. So, one thing I also want to go over that I know I mentioned in the other video, but just to make it easier on you. There are 2 Scraggy and 2 Scrafty in this deck. That's a line, because, they evolve into each other or something like that. Scraggy evolves into Scrafty. So, that's called, say, a 2-2 line. 2 of Scraggy and then 2 of Scrafty. So, yeah. As far as the Pangoro goes, that's a 4-2 line, because there's 4 Pancham and then 2 Pangoro. So keep that in mind, if I happen to say that later on in the video. So Scraggy has some really funny looking art. It's not too fancy of a card. It takes 2 dark energy to do Corkscrew Punch for 30, and that's it. Yeah. But once you evolve it, it turns into Scrafty, and that's some cool art for it, I have to say. So for 2 colorless, does 30, so nothing more really than Scraggy was doing. But for 2 dark, it does Machine Gun Headbutt, which does 50 damage times the number of heads. So you flip 3 coins, actually, and then it'll do 50 times the number of heads on those coins. If you get 0 heads, by the way, it doesn't do 50, it does 0. Because if you know how to math, 0 times 50 is 0. In fact, 0 times anything is 0. So yeah, but as long as you get at least 1 heads, that's kind of nice. Now, regardless of how many heads you get, after using that attack, this Pokemon is now confused. Confused meaning you flip it upside down, and whenever it tries to attack, you have to flip a coin. If you get tails, your turn ends, and you take 3 damage counters. So that's like 30 damage. So not cool if you hit yourself with a confusion. So Scraggy is kind of risky. Actually, Scraggy's pretty bad. Scrafty's kind of risky, but it's not too shabby either, I guess. So you're running 2 of those. Next up, there is a nice old Machamp line. Let's take a look at this here. So again, we're doing a line of these Pokemon. It's 3, 2, 1. You know what that means? You know what that means? You remember? You remember I was just telling you? Yeah. 3 Machop, 2 Machoke, and then just 1 Machamp. So, let's take a look at Machop. For 1 energy, it does 10 damage. And that's it. Has 70 hit points though, but really basic card. Really basic. Then we have Machoke. 90 hit points. For 2 fighting, beat down for 40. Yeah, alright, but that's fine. It's still solid, so. But if you can make it all the way up to Machamp, look at that power. Oh man, 150 hit points. This thing can take a lot of damage, that's for sure. It has an ability, and this is constant all the time, whether it's active or on the bench, which is handy. Each of your fighting Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon before applying weakness and resistance. Each of your fighting Pokemon's attack. And that means if this is on the bench or something, whatever else you're using that's a fighting type will do more damage as well. Plus, theoretically, if you got some in booster packs, you could add more Machamp to have 2 of them on your bench, and then have each attack do 40 more. So that's kind of neat. Even without that ability, Machamp Crush is kind of nice. 3 fighting for 80 damage. However, remember, thanks to the ability, it's 100 damage. And during your opponent's next turn, any damage done by attacks from the defending Pokemon is reduced by 40. So, you know, if you're fighting something and it damages you, you're going to take 40 damage less. And you're doing 100 damage. This is not too shabby of a Stage 2 card. The only problem is it requires a lot of energy and it's a Stage 2, so you have to have all the other evolution Pokemon, like Machop and Machoke. But other than that, it's really solid. Definitely want to focus on this. Very nice to have. Okay, so again, a 3, 2, 1 line on that. Now let's take a look at the Hariyama line. So again, really basic, but you know, gets the job done. So Makahita has 80 hit points for a basic. Not too bad for a basic that evolves, really. And very basic attacks that you can probably see here. I don't feel the need to go over those, but yeah, you know, rather solid. And then it evolves into Hariyama. So this thing has 120 hit points on a Stage 1. That's not too shabby at all. I mean, like, a lot of the Pokemon in this deck have very high hit points, which is nice. It also has an ability, Thick Fat. Any damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's fire or water Pokemon is reduced by 30 after applying weakness and resistance. That's kind of nice. If you run up against something water or fire, it just flat out takes 30 less. So it's not useful all the time, but you never know. And then for 1 fighting and 2 of anything, it does Rocket Slap for 80. Now 80 is not too shabby at all for a Stage 1 and just for 3 energy. So definitely a solid hitter here. Pretty good in your deck. The only problem is that 4 retreat costs really kind of hurts it. It's difficult to retreat this thing because you have to discard that many energy. So yeah, it's probably not going anywhere unless you use a switch card or something like that. Yep. Okay, let's take a look at one of the other fighting Pokemon lines in here. Seems to make sense. So we have Mienfoo and Mienshao. It is a 2-2 line actually, so 2 Mienfoo, 2 Mienshao. And really basic for Mienfoo, except Lunge, 2 colorless for 30 damage. However, you have to flip a coin. If you get tails, it does nothing. Nothing, not even damage. So it's a real gamble there, but it could be all right. And then it evolves into Mienshao. 90 hit points, so not as, you know, hit point bulky as the rest, but that's okay. So it has 2 moves. The first one is for 1 fighting energy, and it's Arrow Turn. It does 40 damage. Plus, you return this card and all cards attached to it to your hand. Why would you want to do that? Well, that's a good question. So, you might have taken some damage. Let's say this thing's taken 60 damage or something. You know, it's getting kind of weak. You can use Arrow Turn to damage the foe for 40 and then bring it back to your hand. You bring that and the Mienfoo back to your hand as well as any energy that are attached to it. So then you just set it down again and you have to wait a turn before re-evolving it. But, you know, the next turn you can just do that again and it makes it kind of difficult to kind of keep up with this. But if you don't want to get rid of it, you can use high jump kick for 40 without having to return it to your hand, because you'd have to do that with arrow turn. Whereas with high jump kick, you know, it's just 40. But it's for 2 colorless, so yeah. Alright, so there are some other fighting types in here. Let's go ahead and look at them. These ones don't evolve or anything, so that's kind of interesting. So there are 2 Hitmonlee in this deck. They're alright. They each have 90 hit points, fighting type, and Stretch Kick. Actually, they have 2 moves. And let me explain these moves to you. So Stretch Kick, for 1 fighting, it does 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. And you don't apply weakness and resistance for that. And then for 2 fighting, it does 30 damage. Isn't that the same thing? Why wouldn't you just use that first move? Well, remember, you can only hit the benched Pokemon with Stretch Kick, whereas Spiral Kick only hits the active Pokemon. So if you want to hit what's fighting Hitmonlee, you have to use Spiral Kick. The 30 damage to a bench is really nice, though. 30 to the active, it's a little less powerful because it's just 30 damage. But hey, you know, 90 hit points, 1 retreat, not too bad. Not too bad, you get 2 of those. So that's cool. And then you also get this guy, Landorus. So this is a basic Pokemon, 120 hit points, which is really nice for a basic, and some very powerful attacks to go along with it. So it has Shout of Power for 20 damage, only takes 1 fighting energy, and on top of that, you get to attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. So you can use this and do a little bit of damage. Plus, if you have cards in your discard pile, you can even get some of the basic energy from your discard pile back onto your Pokemon. You can't attach them to Landorus though, but it's a great way to do some damage and also start charging up your bench, because you can normally only attach 1 energy per turn from your hand. This gives you an option to sort of attach more energy. It just has to be by using this attack, and it has to be from your discard pile. Then, for 2 fighting, 1 colorless, it has Sky Lariat, which does 90 damage. Very powerful. Definitely a solid hitter. And if you happen to have the Machamp on your bench, that's going to do 110 for 3, so that's not too shabby. Weakness to water, too, kind of helps because it's not weak to Psychic like just about everything else is in this deck. With the exception, though, of the Scrafty and the Pangoro line. I think they're resistant to Psychic, if I recall. Why, yes, they are. So they take a little bit less than Psychic. Okay, so there's only 1 more evolution line in here, and that would be the Licky Licky line. Also, there's only the 1 Landorus. I don't remember if I said that or not, but now you know, regardless. So, Lickitung. Basic Pokemon, it's colorless, so you can use it with any energy, which is nice. And 3 colorless, 3 of anything, for Lunge, which does 50 damage, but again, you have to flip a coin. If you get Tails, it does nothing. Nothing at all. So it is a risk, but since you can attach any type of energy, that's kind of nice. On top of that, you can evolve it into Licky Licky. Look at this thing. Oh, it's so crazy. So it does some interesting moves, but on top of that, it has 120 hit points. Not too shabby. Big retreat, though. 4 retreat. Ow, that's the weakness of this deck, I tell ya. But anyway, for 3 colorless, it does 50, just like Licky Licky, except you don't have to flip for it. And you discard a random card from your opponent's hand. So that's pretty handy. No pun intended. And then for 4 colorless energy, it does 60 damage right off the bat, which is kind of nice. And then you flip a coin until you get Tails. It does 30 more damage for each heads you get. That's pretty cool. You don't know how much you're going to do, but it could end up being a lot. Let's just see. See, I do 90. Well, I guess I do 90 damage, but that's still pretty okay. Yeah, definitely a threat. So that's Licky Licky for you. Alright, now that's all the Pokemon lines in here. Also, you get a 2-2 Licky Licky line. So 2 Lickitung and 2 Licky Licky. Very neat. But on top of that, there are some other interesting cards in this deck. They are trainer cards. Now, you might see these trainer cards and think, wait, these aren't Pokemon. These cards are boring. They aren't cool at all, man. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions about the Pokemon Trading Card Game. it's not all about the Pokemon. It's actually more about the trainers and supporter cards. There are 2 types of trainers. Actually, I think there's 3 different types of trainer cards. I forgot about stadiums, but they're not in this theme deck, so we don't need to worry about them. Although, just for future reference, they're a card you play, and it affects both players, and it stays out for a while. Okay, so lots of trainers in here. It's kind of handy. There are 2 types you really need to be aware of here. Let me show you just briefly the difference between the 2. So, notice in the top right corner of each of these cards, top left it says trainer. That means it's a trainer card. But just like there are types in Pokemon, there are also types of trainers. This one is an item card. This one is a supporter card. So item cards, they can be used as many times. Well, okay, when I say they can be used, I mean you can play as many item cards during your turn as you like. You have to discard them after you use them, but I could use a professor's letter and then use another one, no problem there. Or another item card. However, supporter cards, you can only use 1 supporter card during your turn. So 1 each turn. They usually have a lot more powerful effects though, but they are, restricted. You have to choose which one you want to use wisely. So yeah. Well, let's go ahead and just discuss the Sycamore here. Professor Sycamore. So you discard your hand and draw 7 cards. That is an amazing card. This is a card that is definitely played by a lot of competitive players. It is a heavy sacrifice, though, if you're not prepared, because you have to get rid of everything in your hand. You have to send it to your discard pile, so you might end up getting rid of some very important stuff. But the power of drawing 7 cards is just, it's amazing. So generally it's worth it, but there are times you won't want to use this. However, it's still a very good card and definitely worth having. You want to get 4 of these. Maybe not necessarily for your starting deck, but in the future, once you get really good at the trading card game, most decks run like 3 or 4, just because that card drawing is so important. So that's cool. You actually end up getting 2 Professor Sycamores in your deck, so that's quite nice actually. Now speaking of the Professor, this is an item card, and it's the Professor's Letter. So you search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards, reveal them, and then put them into your hand. You shuffle your deck afterwards. So that's good to get some energy that you can use to attach to your Pokemon. You don't actually attach the 2 basic energies you get from this, but you do at least put them in your hand. So saves you the trouble of having to find them or just wait until you draw them. So that's rather handy. Alright, and I think you get 2 of those. Yeah, you get 2 of those in your deck. Now, here's another card. It's called Roller Skates. Roller Skates. It's an item card, so you can play as many of these as you like during your turn. And you flip a coin. If heads, you draw 3 cards. If tails, you get nothing! But you know what? Since it's an item card, it doesn't use up your supporter card for the turn, so it's generally a nice chance to get some extra cards, because that gives you a huge advantage. Drawing cards is very important in the Pokemon Trading Card Game, so every little bit helps. So that's cool. I think you get 2 of these in your deck. Yes, you do. So, quite handy. So, another card you get 2 of are these Energy Switch. Oops, there we go. Rather simple. You move a basic energy from one of your Pokemon to another of your Pokemon. Remember that Landorus that puts a basic energy on one of your bench Pokemon? Well, you could actually use this energy switch to move it from that benched Pokemon to Landorus. So you could actually use its attack, its big attack, on the second turn if you're really clever about things. But yeah, it's a nice surprise card to use. Energy switch, 2 of those in your deck. Okay, now a card you only get 1 of in your deck, but it is pretty handy, is Evo Soda. So, you search your deck for a card that evolves from one of your Pokemon, and you put it onto that Pokemon. It counts as evolving. You shuffle your deck afterwards, and then you can't use this card during your first turn or on a Pokemon that was put into play this turn. So, it doesn't let you evolve right away. It doesn't let you skip that limit like, say, the Pancham does. But it's still kind of neat, because let's say you have several things on your bench, you can use this to search for an evolution for one of them. and then put it onto it. So it's a nice searching card. The only thing is, it doesn't let you go from a basic to a stage 2 Pokemon, like, say, Rare Candy. But it does let you find the Pokemon in your deck and evolve it. So that's kind of cool, because you don't have to rely on drawing the Pokemon, which is cool, because you only get to draw 1 card per turn, normally. Okay, another supporter card. There's only 1 Pokemon Center Lady in the deck, but that's fine, that's probably all you need. You heal 60 damage and remove all special conditions from one of your Pokemon. 60 damage is pretty nice, and removing the special conditions is nice too, but the problem is, well, that uses up your supporter for the turn, so you don't get to draw more cards or do other cool, fun supporter effects. However, it might be kind of nice. Probably a card I wouldn't advise keeping for too long in your deck. There's only 1, so it's not really a pain to get rid of it. You won't really miss it. Maybe throw in more Sycamores or something. Or Karina here. She's a nice supporter card. Search your deck for a fighting Pokemon and an item card. Reveal them and put them into your hand. Shuffle your deck afterwards. You actually get 2 of these in your deck, which is really nice. They let you find any of your fighting Pokemon and just bring it right to your hand. Let's say you have, Machop out. You can search for a Machoke with this. Or, better yet, let's say you have a Machoke. This lets you search for that 1 Machamp in your deck and put it in your hand. Plus, on top of getting the fighting Pokemon, you get an item card. That means you can get some roller skates. That means you can get some Evo Soda. In fact, if you really wanted, here's what you could do. Let's say you have Machop and this. You use this to search for an Evo Soda and the Machamp. And then you can use the Evo Soda to evolve Machop into Machoke, and then you'll have the Machamp in your hand. That's simple. Or I guess you could do it the other way around if you'd rather. But pretty nifty. And there's 2 of these in your deck. So very helpful for any fighting type deck. Definitely a fan of that. And I think that actually does it for unique trainers and supporters and stuff. All of these are just things that I already showed you. So on top of all that, this deck comes with 12 fighting energy and 6 dark energy. There's not really a lot of dark Pokemon in here, so that's why it's a lower amount. So, things that you could do to improve this deck, really. There are quite a few things. One of the most important things, there's a new card called Strong Energy. It's a special energy card, meaning you can't get it with, like, Professor's Letter and stuff like that. And you also can't attach it from your discard pile using the Landorus. But when it's attached to a fighting type Pokemon, that Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage. So if you can get 4 strong energy in a deck like this, that'd be really nice. More Karina definitely wouldn't hurt, as along with more card drawing and just, more stuff. For fighting Pokemon, stuff like Lucario-EX would be good if you can get your hands on one of those. But yeah, maybe scrap the Licky Licky and the Mean Foo line. Maybe even the Scraggy and Scrafties. I don't know. But yeah, this deck is interesting. I think it's probably the better of the 2 decks because the moves seem to hit much harder. The trainers seem to be a bit better, but it doesn't come with the Fairy Energy. And since the Fairy Energy is kind of hard to get, that might be an incentive to go ahead and get that. So, I don't know. But one thing I do know is you actually can have a chance at winning both this theme deck as well as the Enchanted Echo theme deck, as well as a full booster box of 36 packs of Furious Fists. I'm holding the giveaway from now until October 6, 2014, where you can take home a set of those as well as a booster box. Very cool, very cool. Ends October 6, 2014. You can find a link in the description. It's over on my website, Marriland.com. But yeah, it's definitely something you want to check out. So yeah, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I know it's not a box opening video, but you know what? That's what's coming up next. I'm going to open another box of Furious Fists, and then I'll kind of point out some things that can be used to improve either of those decks. So hopefully that'll be enjoyable. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you had fun, and I will see you next time for a box opening of Furious Fists. Oh yeah, see you next time, everyone.